Welcome to Ordinary People, Extraordinary Things. Thank you so much for being here and listening. And Anthony, thanks for being on the podcast.
Oh, I'm super pumped to be here, and as we, getting to meet new people as my podcast grows, and I'm super excited just to see where God's taking this, and so I'm definitely excited to be here to get to hang out and get to know you all a little bit, get to know you a little better as well.
Oh, thank you. If people don't know who you are, can you give three words or phrases to describe yourself?
Well, or I'm actually a pastor. I was a youth minister for several years, and but I'm definitely a family man and love the outdoors, hardworking, and just pretty fun. I like to goof off a lot too. So just I'm one of those just kind of easygoing country boys.
And what's your family look like?
We have, me and my wife, we've been married for 31 years, and we have two kids and four grandbabies. Matter of
Oh,
fact, we're going to get to see the youngest one tomorrow. He's down in North Carolina, and the place I'm delivering is like about an hour north. So it's going to be a short visit, but we get to go wrestle him a little bit, so that's good.
oh, that's so fun. That's
Yeah.
great.
Yeah, and our son lives here in town close to us, and our other three grandsons live here, so we get to see them quite a bit. So it's pretty good, and they're all about outdoors and fishing, so I get to do some camping and stuff with them too. So we're a pretty close knit family, and like to do things together.
That's wonderful. Can you tell me about your faith journey? When did you believe in Jesus? How did that all happen for you?
Well, I was kind of born and raised I lived with my grandmother for several years, and if the church doors was open, that's where we were. And when I got into my teenage years, that rebellious stage, I ran and didn't look back. And then me and my wife got together and we had our daughter, and so when she hit middle school, she actually started going to a FCA, which is that Fellowship of Christian Athletes,
Mhm.
and her school with a friend, and she met this pastor, Mark Gerald, and they had planted a church and they were meeting at the middle school on Sunday mornings, and he was leading part of the FCA with a couple of the teachers, and well, she accepted Christ. And she come home and said, "Dad, I want to get baptized, and I want you all to come with me." And so at this time, I'm like, "Nah, I don't really want to go, but how are they going to, baptize her in the middle school anyway?" So I'm told her, I said I would, and and so the Sunday morning that I was supposed to go to church with her, I was hoping that she had forgotten. Well, she didn't. And so I went to that morning with her, and it was a year and a half before I missed my first Sunday. And we were doing a free car wash and hot dog giveaway with the church and stuff. But it was then is when I fully surrendered and gave my life to Christ. Was in 2008. We did that car wash and stuff together, and it was like later that evening we had a baptism, and I was baptized, and it was actually got to be baptized together with my son. And so that was pretty cool. Both me being in the water when he come in. So, but it's just been just a fantastic journey just to watch what God has done in my life. And I look back at all the years that I went as a kid, going, man, my grandma really had it together. Thankful that she was praying for me and really kind of set the foundation, I guess. Uh, and so yeah, I've been serving since. And then I was in about a year, I guess, and I felt God was starting to call me towards the ministry. And my
You
wife
are
and I
you
were
are
dating.
baptized, and then about a year later is what you're saying?
Yeah, about a year later, and now we were pretty active in the church, serving. I was helping set up because it was a complete setup, tear down type of thing. All the sound equipment, the stage had to be set, banners put up, and because we were in a middle school, and so we were pretty active. We were in home groups, and I started feeling that God was calling me into ministry. Didn't have any clue what that meant or what it looked like, but I kept feeling like it was teaching students. And me and my wife were sitting at our dining room table, and I looked at her and I was telling her, and she's like, "Well, you don't really know much about that." And I'm like, "I know, all right." I was like, "I have no idea," and so I just like I'm gonna keep praying about it and see, and then. I think it was probably the following Tuesday. I sat down with the senior pastor, which is Mark Gerald, and told him what I'd been feeling. And he's like, and I said something about working with students in the youth group, and he's like, "Well, it's funny you should say that." He's like, "I have one spot open on my team," and I'm like, "Okay, this is a God thing," and uh, and it just went from there. I began teaching and just playing with the students, just acting goofy, doing games and just being with them and getting to know them. And as we continue to progress, I felt that calling continue and wanted to be a youth pastor. And so I started looking into schooling, and West Virginia School of Christian Studies, which is part of Palmer Seminary. Did 4 years with that and did the pastoral ministry, and I took over the youth group in December of 2011 and was licensed to preach that or in 2012. And then of course, and I didn't finish my schooling until 2014 and was finally ordained in 2021. And so it's been a fantastic ministry experience. There's been a lot of highs, lows, and in betweens.
Yeah. Oh, what are you still doing that now? Are you still a youth pastor?
I left youth ministry shortly. It was during the COVID. There was just so much happening. I was driving school bus too, which is part of I looked as an extension as ministry. But prior to COVID happening, before my ordination, I felt God's telling me, He's like, in 2 years, major changes are coming. And I'm like, I have no idea what that means. But I'm just going through, and then they start talking about the ordination, and then COVID, and I'm like, okay, this is it. This is the big change. We got all this stuff happening in the world, and I'm going to be ordained. And nope, I wasn't even close. The RV transport started coming around. I'm like, to this day, I've never researched it, never even knew it was a thing until 21 or to around 2000. Yeah, it was in 2020, somewhere around there. It started coming around, and I was just kind of feeling some burnout and just some things. It was there was a whole lot happening, and so uh, and I felt like it was just time to step down or step away from it. And God showed me this new path. He wanted me to start the YouTube channel. And it was like I was walking down the steps here at my house, and it was on the road with Pastor Anthony sharing Jesus in life 1 mile at a time. And I was like, I'm not that creative. That had to be a God thing. So, but and so during that, that time that, this interchange, and I began to, start praying about it. Me and my wife were talking, and, it was another one of those. I never dreamed that I would be back doing trucking, because early on in life, that's all I ever wanted to do. And I did that. I did 3 years of on the road, and then, I did almost 12 years of local driving before I went into school bus and then the youth ministry. And so now here I'm looking at going back out, but in a different capacity this time. It was driving a pickup, pulling campers all over the country, and uh, and then doing this YouTube. And I was like, I don't know nothing about it. I am not technological at all, and I'm still learning quite a bit. And but I have learned a lot, and just been watching the journey grow, doing the different messages, teaching stuff, working on the truck. But every every video ends with prayer. God's honored in it somehow, some way. Every video that I do, and some are just straight up messages. Then I began to kind of transfer into this podcast. So I've been watching God just kind of. It's been that slow next step, the next step, the next step, and I do still pulpit supply. So if a church is in, it doesn't have a pastor or needs someone's going to be on vacation, they'll call me, and then I'll go preach at their church and get to hang out with them for that day. And so it's been a lot of fun. It's definitely, I mean, took me out of my comfort zone and really shook things up. And definitely not in the direction that I would have ever seen coming. But that's God. So and I'm just along for the ride.
Yeah, I feel like that's a very, like a lot of people feel that, right? As far as not really sure what the next step is, or like what you said also, as far as I felt something was going to be changing, And then just waiting for that is super hard. You said you waited for about 2 years and thought that some of these things that were in place were the big change. So, what would you say to someone that feels like they're in that same spot right now?
I'd say just, keep praying it through. And when the door opens, walk through it. And that was one of the things that me and my wife prayed whenever I was looking to get into RV transport. God, if this is you, open the doors. But if it's not, close them. And I think that's a prayer that a lot of people need to do when they're trying to make big, huge life decisions, changes, whatever that may be, is put it in God's hands. Take it out of yours, because I've found out, and I've learned a lot of lessons falling on my face that when I try to do it and try to make it, better or whatever, it usually doesn't go as well. So it's one of the things that I've learned over these last few several years is, slow down, pray it through, allow God to direct the path, and it'll go way smoother. So, so I'm getting better at it, because I've always been known as the bull in the china shop. That I want to, I got to be the guy that does it and fixes it, whatever. And so, it's really just a learning experience. You really just have to sit with God and just be still and know that He's God, and and allow Him to guide and direct your path as you move forward. But never go backwards. Always move forward. If you make a mistake or mess up or fail at something, that don't mean nothing. It's just a learning curve, and you got to keep going.
Do you find it's hard to take these small steps? You're saying, I felt this calling for the YouTube, and so I started it, even not knowing, and then you've seen it grow and change. And I feel like sometimes that's great, and sometimes it's not so easy and great.
Yeah, I think one of my biggest frustrations is, in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, well, God called me to this. This thing's going to launch, and I mean, we're going to have 5 million subscribers in a couple, and I'm 5 years in. I've got well over 500 videos on the YouTube side. Yeah, I'm like under 500 subscribers. And the podcast side, since I've only been doing it since last year is when I kind of moved, transitioned into that. And I'm gonna tell you, I've had a lot of fun with it. It's just like, because it's like I get to preach and do the things that I, do, but I'm reaching a different audience. And so, which is, my ministry mindset from early on with my mentors that was around me was, we don't do, doing the norm is okay sometimes, but don't be afraid to step out of the box. And so to do something different that God's calling you to do. And so I've done a lot of crazy stuff, with my youth group. I did a lock out instead of a lock in. So, I mean, just stuff like that. And so I think it's kind of transitioned into what I'm doing now. Because maybe I don't do things exactly the way everybody else does, but it's just like God's called me to evangelize and to, especially during the time that we live in. I think the church needs to be challenged a lot more. And so I really think that that's kind of what, the role that God has called me into is, and a lot of times when I'm doing these messages, I'm like, since y'all are here, you get to listen, but this one's for me, so, but, and so I've had a lot of fun with it. And it's just, I don't know where it's going. It may be that this is the deal where it is. But if it reaches, one person that, finds Christ, then, hey, it was all worth it. So, but evangelism is one of my strong spiritual gifts, the strongest one. And so anytime I get a chance to talk about Christ, I'm like, yep, let's go. I'll just do it.
Okay, I have to ask, what is a lockout?
Okay, we did a
I was like, okay,
we
you said that, but we have to find out what that means.
well, your lock-ins is you go in a building, you shut the doors and whatever, and you do stuff all night. Well, we had an outdoor event where we had music and stuff and food and all this stuff all day, and we were going to have the worship service outside the next day. So the youth group was kind of the security, but so we did. I got shirts made up with like chains that I was locked out, and but we stayed outside the whole night. Never, if they had to use the restrooms or whatever, they could go in and do that. But I mean, we played games and had pizza and just, played music and just, I mean, just it was a blast. And we were just out in a big field, and of course, the tent and stuff was there. And then when if they got tired, some of them went in and turned the chairs around and made themselves beds and laid down and whatever. And so because it was on a Saturday and we had the church Sunday morning, so and the pastor was like, "You can't be sleeping in the service." But we actually got to do two of those, and the students loved it, and so, but it was a lot of fun. It was different, something that they'd never done before, and I thought it was pretty fun. Made a lot of great memories those couple times we did that.
Oh, that's really cool. That's really cool. What you said really resonated with me if I could share something. So, I started my podcast over 4 years ago, and I had a clear calling as well. I went to a women's conference, and a woman, or right before the woman came on stage, they asked us to get into groups and pray. And so everyone went around, they asked everyone just to say one word if they didn't feel comfortable. So everyone said one word, like patience, something like that. I was the last one, and I actually kind of went all out with what God had put on my heart. I said, I felt like God's calling me to do a podcast. I have the name, just like you did,
Yeah,
Ordinary People, Extraordinary Things. And I said, I don't have time, but really it was about failing. What if I do this and no one listens? And
yeah,
how will that affect me? And so I actually said, God, I don't want to hear you. And I put my hands over my ears. Then this woman that I'd never met came on stage. She's talking about obeying, and all of this stuff. And then she actually said, maybe you're thinking, God, I don't want to hear you. Said the exact same words, put her hands over her ears. And everyone I had just been praying with looked at me and was like, what? And so it was so clear. It was so clear. It was like, oh my gosh. So I stopped disobeying. I started the podcast within a month. And like you, I was like, oh my gosh, I had a clear calling from God, like not audible from Him, but clearly audible through another person.
yeah,
And I thought the same thing. Oh my goodness, this is going to go crazy. It's going to be so big. Oh my goodness, like get ready.
yeah.
And it's not. and and like you, it's not like no one's listening at all, but it's so interesting how God didn't tell me it's going to be number one podcast in the world. He
Yeah,
didn't say that. That's
yeah,
what I said.
yeah. That was my idea too. And he's like, yeah, break time.
Yeah. So it's interesting that when God calls us to something, sometimes we put expectations on God that He's like, "Hey, I didn't say that. I just told you to be faithful."
Yeah, yeah, that's it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, but yeah, it's amazing how that works, and when because it's, and I've heard that before, or somebody was talking about how God speaks to us, and so different, many different ways, and it's like amazing. There was a lady who spoke at one of our youth events one time, and she was talking about she was wrestling with whatever it was, and so she's like, usually when I got stressed, she goes, I used to eat a key lime pie. She goes, and this particular pie company was a Christian pie company. She goes, and so when I got down to the bottom of this pie pan, she goes, there's a scripture in there. She's like, go read it, and it's exactly what I was looking for, the answer. She's like, so you never know. And I'm like, it's amazing how when we look and start, I mean, because I've seen license plates with scriptures or something on, hear something in a song, and it's just like, boom, it's just like light bulb. He's like, okay, God, I get you. I hear what you're trying to tell me. So, yeah, and I think that's one of the things that we have to do is when we're being obedient is listening and then, move
Mhm.
and not sit still. And I think that's hard for us sometimes, because of the fear of, oh gosh, I'm going to fall on my face. This is going to blow up and or whatever. And just, uh, but I think we did. It's just a matter of that obedience. Get up and move, and go, and leave it caution to the wind, and God will take care of it.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. One of the things that came up in my mind as you're speaking is so you kind of left your faith when you were a teenager. Is that a
Yes. Whenever I left my grandmother's, because she'd gotten sick with cancer, but previously it wasn't too much longer after, and but I was hit that teenage years and I knew everything. And I didn't like, and she was pretty strict with me, when I was living there. I had chores, I cut the grass, she'd lived through the depression. So, I mean, it was that mentality with her, she used to make me come in the kitchen. You're going to be a bachelor someday. You need to learn how to cook. It was that. And, but so when I hit teenage years, of course, I moved back or went to my dad back in with my dad's because I wanted to be out there doing guy stuff with my, half brother and then that wasn't good enough. And it was like I was running and what I did. And I ended up with my mom and I look back at my life and some of the things I did when I lived with her. I'm like, God, I had a hand in it because I'd have been dead or in jail. It's just like, but he had a plan. And, not looking back all these years, I'm like, I tell people, I said, that's the only regret I have is not following him sooner.
Mhm.
And so, but I was like, I wouldn't trade anything because it's allowed such a heightened experience, it's like that verse, God uses all things, and so I'm like, yep, he sure has because I mean, it's allowed me to be able to key in on students or whatever that I'm working with, be able to help them understand and some of the things that they're going through as well. And then plus two, my kids couldn't get away with anything because I'd done been there, done that. Me and my wife both were like, "Yep, nothing you're all going to do. We haven't done ourselves." So,
Well, and also your daughter kind of brought you back when she was a teenager.
yeah. And so it shows you how she was much smarter than her dad. But but she had some good friends that invited her, and she went. And Genesis Fellowship when we started there, I hadn't, of course, I hadn't been in church in it's already 16 years at least when we started. And, but they did so much outreach and just out of the box stuff. And, it was a contemporary worship, just come as you are and all that. It's just, but we felt at home. I mean, it wasn't like one of those where you're there for a while and then kind of get you. It was just like when you went in, it was like, okay, I feel comfortable here. I like what I'm feeling, and it's just like the people were just fantastic. But that's one of the things I used to love about is I learned so much about outreach, and we used to do free car washes and stuff like that all the time. And we shut the church down. We did a sermon series called Outflow. Can't even tell you the sermon series what they were all about, other than it was like showing like God how it feels and overflows into the bottom tiers, and us kind of an evangelistic thing. But the last Sunday of it, we had an older couple stay at the church building in case visitors showed up, but we weren't there. We were doing car wash free. We were at like McDonald's and whatever, emptying trays for people, cleaning windows and pumping gas. It was just we went out into the community to share Christ and to serve the people. And that was probably one of the most best memories that I can think of, throughout my years there at GF. And so it really taught me a lot about, what church should be and, and how we as the kingdom, or kingdom growers should be acting. And so, and I'm like, man, I just loved it.
Hmm. I hear you say kindnesses, and this is always one of my questions is what kindness have you seen or what kindness have you given in the last week? You talked about the kindness of, going out and doing the McDonald's trays and stuff. What's something that you've done or seen lately?
Mm, well, especially being out here on the road, being able to help, sometimes you help other drivers if they got something going on with their truck or, maybe it's open the door. There's been times that, you see someone that does, homeless or whatever that doesn't have enough money and you go ahead and get them something. You see stuff like that all the time. And, one of the things, being out, we have to take showers and stuff at truck stops, and there's been several times drivers will come in, won't have any shower credits, and it's like $18 for a shower, and I got 11, so I'll go ahead, give them that, and but like got a good friend that talks to. Matter of fact, I met him through doing my podcast or the YouTube and stuff. He picked me up, started following me somehow or another, and I got to meet him. We've turned into a pretty good friend. So I get to talk to him and kind of counsel with him a little bit sometimes when he's got some rough stuff going on or whatever. So I look for those opportunities. and I don't like self checkouts because I want to talk to the person behind the counter, and so you just kind of look at them for feeling down, do something, say something silly to kind of pick them up, or 'cause sometimes if you go in to buy some, you might be getting a taco, but ask them you want to order a large pizza, just because it kind of throws them off and kind of gets them their attention. So I like doing stuff like that. So I look for ways to kind of brighten people's day if possible.
Yeah, we do a lot of road tripping as a family, and we have been one of those people where our truck has broken down. So if someone has stopped, that's always such a kindness.
Yes. I know, and it's kind of, nowadays it's kind of hard to whether you want to do that or not. Um, but if I get the opportunity, if I can get over, pull in there, yeah, I want to help you. And so, and I've done that a few times, and I enjoy doing it. So, because God's blessed me with the ability to be able to wrench on some vehicles, and I've learned a lot over the years. And the truck that I have now is a 2014 Ram with a diesel, and it's got 550,000 miles on it, and I've done almost all of the work, any kind of maintenance and so it's just like, so if I can help someone in that manner, I'll definitely do it. And so I look for opportunities to serve, and however I do that.
Did you say 550,000
Yes,
miles? Wow.
yes. That truck has been to all 48 states, and it's been to Canada twice.
Wow. That's
So,
so cool. Wow.
but and it's in my grandson, the oldest one, named it because it's brown. It's a Western brown, and he was, of course, I've had it for over, what is it? It's been over 5 years now, and he named it Viper because he said it reminded him of a pit viper. And so that's the truck's name, Viper, and it's in almost every one of my videos that I do with RV transport stuff. It's in there, and it's taught a lot of people things about RV, about working on changing. I've changed the transmission in it a couple times, and I've had to do some other stuff, so I've used it for that. So it's a well-known truck to people that knows me, and I've got to meet quite a few people, and I've made some great friends along the way as I've been out, and so I look for those opportunities to continue to build those relationships.
That's awesome. What are you grateful for?
Just the things that God's doing. It's like a lot of, there's been times I'm like throwing my hands up and like, help me understand what's going on right now. When I've hit some rough patch, here a few, it's been a little while back, but just, watching God be faithful and, and calm me down and just be able to like, listen, I got you. Just hang on, okay? I got something better. And I tell people all the time, I was like, I think that the RV transport, I was never meant to stay there, and it was a temporary thing. And so God's never let me get comfortable there, so I wouldn't stay there. And but I think that's part of one of the biggest blessings is just, watching him put up with me for one, some of the things, but just guiding me and helping me navigate what comes next. And I'm pretty excited about it. So it's like what, I'm finally getting in that mentality. It's like, okay, let's go. Whatever you want, let's just do it, because I know it's going to be fun when we get there. It might be a little rough getting there, but once we arrive, it'll be fine.
That's a great mentality. What is your favorite Bible verse or story?
Oh my gosh, man, we could talk all day. There's this But I think one that like really just pops out of my head is that the Philippians 4:13. I can do all things through Christ who gives me strength. And because when I really studied into that one, I was like, because you think about it, it's like, well, I can accomplish this because he gives me strength. Nope, it's just like no matter what it is in life. I mean, even the good stuff, getting up to go to work, you can't do that without him giving you that strength. And so you can't deal with the tough stuff in life without his strength. And so I think that one right there really, I mean, just like resonates with me and probably my go-to. is remembering that one. I always try to remember that, and then like Matthew 6:33, store up, treasures in heaven, not on earth. So I try to keep those thoughts, but the whole thought process is, I can't do nothing without him. And so, so that's why I lean on that one probably the most.
Yeah, no, that's good. That's good. Well, I've so enjoyed our conversation.
Oh yeah, it's been a lot of fun.
And what is your YouTube channel and your podcast so people can follow you?
It is On the Road with Pastor Anthony.
Well, I hope people start listening or start watching on your YouTube, and we'll put those in the show notes. And it's just been fun getting to talk to you, and again, just these connections and just seeing where God's going to lead both of our endeavors.
Oh yeah, for sure, for sure. And so yeah, it's definitely going. We still got growing and learning. That's what I tell somebody. It's like if you ain't learning something every day, then you're going backwards. And so you just let's keep going and just always move forward and and just let God lie. Let Him do the guiding, and we'll just follow along. So that's what we're supposed to do, anyways, as His disciples.
That's so true. Well, we'll end on that. And at Ordinary People, Extraordinary Things, your story is His glory.